Hi, this is Adam Goldberg, Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder at Clear Sailing. Recently, we conducted the Attribution Management Forum, where we polled leading online marketers about various attribution management scenarios in an effort to provide answers for best practices and methodology on online advertising. We have created 5 categories across the various online advertising solutions that were discussed during the forum. This is the second video in the series in which we discuss lifetime ad value and attribution. Path, the consumer does a search, clicks on an ad, and on the same day makes a purchase. Then that same consumer, without the need of additional advertising, makes a second purchase over a week later, and a couple days after that, they make another purchase. The following are a few different attribution rules to discover which model is most beneficial to the situation. In Attribution Rule A, you are choosing to give the ad that was responsible for the first sale all of the credit for the future sales as well. The argument for doing this rule is that without being present during the first search, you would have not gotten the initial sale and therefore wouldn't have received any of the future sales either. In Attribution Rule B, you are giving the search ad credit for only a sale that was generated on the day in which it was clicked. The argument for doing this is that you believe the ads should only get credit for a sale if you can directly tie it to it. In Attribution Rule C, you are giving the search ad complete credit on the day it was clicked and some additional credit for the future sales that were generated as well. The argument for this rule is that you believe without the initial ad, the second and third sale may not have occurred, and therefore you want to give some, but not all credit back to the initial ad. For each of the scenarios, we broke the results down according to 2 categories. The first is by industry type, where we labeled each answer according to whether or not they work for a B2C firm, B2B firm, or an agency. On the second set of answers, we broke them down by experience level. We asked each person if they have the ability to do attribution management today. They answered either yes or no. For those that answered yes, we broke them down one step further, to one group being yes, but it could be working better, and then the final group where they answered yes and it works very well, indicating that they have the highest level of sophistication amongst any of the groups. When we look at the answers by industry type, we can see that almost all of those polled believe that the first ad in the series deserves a larger amount of credit than the other ads, as shown here. Now, when we take a look by experience, among the groups that have tracking technology and say it works well, they too agree that the original ad deserves some credit for the second and third sale. There is pretty much an even split between whether or not the first ad deserves all of the credit for the future sales or just a fraction of the future sales. The second scenario, lifetime ad value with the use of an email. In this purchase path, the consumer does a search, clicks on an ad, and on the same day makes a purchase. After this first purchase, they are put in the customer retention email program. 2 days after receiving the first email, they come back to the site and buy again, then make a third purchase a couple of days later. In Attribution Rule A, you are choosing to allocate the credit for all 3 sales to the original search ad. Without the original search ad that produced the sale, they would have never been enrolled in the program to receive the email in the first place. In Attribution Rule B, you're giving conversion credit to the ad that occurred prior to the sale, regardless of the type of ad it was. The argument for doing this is that you believe you should allocate sales back to the most recent ad that was engaged in by the consumer. And in Attribution Rule C, you believe the initial ad that got the customer in the first place deserves some credit for future sales. You also believe that the addition of the email deserves some credit as well. The argument for this rule is that the ad that introduced the customer to your business and their first sale is special and therefore deserves some percent of the future sales that occur. You also believe that your email retention program deserves some form of credit for future sales also. The majority across all business types and experience levels agree that option C is the most logical fit. Both the search and email deserve a portion of the credit for the sale, with the additional search getting slightly more credit. Now, when we look at the experience level, no one thought that the first search deserved credit for all 3 sales. 85% of the most experienced group voted for C now, which is a 35% increase from those that voted for C in the previous scenario. In the third scenario, lifetime ad value with the use of an additional search, what we have here in this purchase path is that the consumer does a search and on the same day makes a purchase. Then over a week later, they do another search and rediscover your site. They make a second purchase a few days later and a third purchase a few days after that. In Attribution Rule A, you are choosing to allocate the credit for all 3 sales to the original search ad. The argument for this is that the original ad deserves all the credit for all the future sales that take place. In Attribution Rule B, you're giving conversion credit to the ad that occurred prior to the sale, regardless of the type of ad it is. The argument for doing this is that you believe you should allocate sales credit back to the most recent ad that was engaged in by the consumer. And in Attribution Rule C, you believe the initial ad that got the customer in the first place deserves some credit for future sales. You also believe that the additional search is worthy of some credit for future sales also. The argument for this rule is that the ad that introduced the consumer to your business and produced their first conversion is special, and therefore deserves some percent of credit for future sales that occur. You also believe that the additional search deserves some form of credit for future sales also. When we look at the answers by industry type, here we see about 75% of people in all business types agree that C is the most appropriate rule. Now, when we look at it in terms of the experience level, regardless of the experience level that they indicated they have, about 75% of people agree that C was the best choice. This also remains true for those that have attribution management experience at the highest level. In our final scenario today, this is where we look at lifetime ad value with a sales call. In this purchase path, the consumer does a search and on the same day makes a purchase. Then over a week later, they receive a sales or a customer service call, and a few days after that call, they make another purchase. In Attribution Rule A, you're choosing to allocate the credit for both the sales to the original search ad. The argument for doing this is that without the original search ad, the salesperson or customer service person would have had no one to call to follow up with in the first place. Therefore, the ad that got the customer deserves all the credit. In Attribution Rule B, you're giving conversion credit to the item that occurred prior to the sale, either the ad or the call. The argument for doing this is that you believe the sale should be allocated back to the most recent engagement with the customer. And in Attribution Rule C, you believe the initial ad that got the customer in the first place deserves some credit for future sales. The argument for this is that the ad that introduced the customer to your business and led to the first conversion deserves a percent of future sales that occur. Also, the addition of the sales call is worthy of some unassigned percentage of the credit for the future sales as well. The results, when we look at them according to the industry type, are very similar to previous polls. Again, across all business types, the majority feel that the original search deserves some percentage of the sale, and also that the sales call deserves some credit as well. Surprisingly, among those that have attribution management tools that work well, they're split down the middle between voting for B or C, and whether or not the original search earns a percentage more than the call or not. If you missed the first video, it covers the first couple of scenarios in dealing with the paid search environment and attribution. For more information about these scenarios or attribution management in general, please visit attributionmanagement.com. Thanks for your time. Be sure to check out the upcoming videos about the remaining attribution management categories. Thank you. I am Adam Goldberg, Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder at Clear Sailing.